Hello, how is everyone doing? Today is going to be part 2 of my story. Oh my god, I'm like looking at myself. I think I just had a cookie. I think I have chocolate on my face. So as you guys have probably seen by now, I assume if you're watching this video, which is part 2 of my story, it's because you have already seen part 1. And so part 1 of my story was basically my life growing up, like chronically sick and then being diagnosed with gluten-free. When I did that video, I did it because I had so much bottled up in me, and as I explained in that video, I've really blacked out a period of my life. So it was almost therapeutic for myself to just relive those moments. And I said that ultimately the reason why I started NOBREAD was because if I could just change or help one person's life from what I went through, then my mission's accomplished. And the feedback from that video was incredible. Like, people saying, my symptoms, my life is your life to a T. My symptoms are your symptoms. I had that same thing. I had non-allergic rhinitis. I'm treating everything with over-the-counter drugs. Thank you. Today's the day I go gluten-free. And like, I literally got so emotional creating that video, and then got even more emotional like hearing all of your feedback and reading your comments, and it just made my day. And I also, so I was like, oh my god, this is so dope. I'm so excited now to tell you part 2 of my life, part 3 of my life, part 4 of my life, because I'm only 29 years old, but I feel like I've lived so many different lives up to now. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna record all the different parts of my life because I have so much to tell you guys, and I'm so excited. But yeah, so that was 2 months ago, and I haven't filmed part 2 or anything like that because it really was emotionally draining, and it really was hard, and I kind of have to like build up the mental energy to share another part of my life. Like, I'm, as I said earlier, like for how public us bloggers make our lives, and I'll speak to myself specifically as public, I share so much, I really just keep as anything that I can to myself, like to myself. So I am sitting here now, it is December, and I'm ready to share with you the next part of my life. So one of the questions I'm constantly asked is like, okay, hey, like I'm in college, or I'm new to gluten-free, I don't know what to do, where do I start? How are you gluten-free and like able to do other things? And I say that, like, my tagline for NOBREAD is just because your life has to be affected doesn't mean your lifestyle has to be. But yeah, I've been gluten-free for 10 years now. It took me 10 years to like figure it out. But it honestly took like a few years, maybe like 5 though, to figure out like what my new normal was and what are the things I could and couldn't do. And okay, yeah, at first I didn't really eat at restaurants, but now I eat at every restaurant. So it is an adjustment. So I want to tell you about the part, so now I ended part 1 of my story with like, okay, I'm gluten-free, but I'm gonna go back to school, and what happened from there. So the summer that I was diagnosed with my gluten allergy and all my restrictions was after my sophomore year of school. I was living in the sorority house, that whole bit. That summer, I had chronic hives, and I didn't even think I was gonna make it back for my junior year of college. And I was so determined. I didn't tell anyone what was wrong with me, other than like my family and like maybe like a friend, because I was like embarrassed by it. And that's what I also want to tell you, like, do not be ashamed by anything that you have. If you have celiac, if you have Crohn's, if you have Lyme, own it, embrace it and own it. And it's a journey to get there, but don't let it define you. Take the power over it. Like, okay, I have celiac disease. I'm not gonna be defined by my restriction. I'm gonna take that restriction and I'm gonna, sorry for lack of better, like fucking own it. Because what happens is when you feel ashamed of what you have, you kind of like fear it, or fear what the public's gonna think of it, and you're gonna let people's opinions and judgments get to you. You have to be like, yo, this is me, and this makes me stronger. So whatever you do have, like, come to terms with it however that works for you. But, so I was ashamed of it, so I didn't tell anyone what was going on. So I go back to school my junior year. I'm living in an apartment with 8 girls, and I that summer lost probably like 10 pounds, and I was already small. So you could see like my collarbones sticking out a little bit. Like, I was skinny, I was too small. what happens when you just like magically lose weight, especially in college. It's like, oh, is she bulimic? Is she anorexic? Is she doing drugs? And I almost would rather let the rumors fly than like say like, no guys, like I'm dealing with shit. Like that's how embarrassed I was of it. I didn't, especially like guys that I wanted to impress, like I would just go on dates and like eat the gluten because I was like so ashamed, like no one knew it, and people would also like poke fun. So going back to school that year, I had never cooked a meal in my entire life. I like thought I was being healthy by having like whole wheat wraps at lunch or like sandwiches and stuff. So that summer before going back for my junior year, my mom taught me like a couple of token meals. So that's like my first tip is if you are diagnosed with this new allergy, and like one of my best friends is being diagnosed with this currently at age 30. And I was like, all right, dude, like here's like your couple of staples, like your go-tos that you know, like when you go to a friend's house and it's like girls' night, we're all cooking dinner, you can recommend like, oh, why don't we make this? Because it's so good and it happens to fit into your diet plan. So like have a couple staple token meals. For me, my mom taught me how to make 3 things. Love you, Mom. She made the egg white omelet. I would make a cup of egg whites, olive oil in a pan, cup of egg whites, steam some broccoli, throw it in, make a huge ass egg white omelet, and then I would steam some home fries or like saute some home fries on a skillet, and I'd have this like massive breakfast. So that was my go-to breakfast. And then I knew, okay, like if I go eat at a restaurant for breakfast with friends, like eggs, home fries, safe, just ask for oil, no dairy, we're good. That's gonna be like one of my token ones. Meal number 2 was like chicken cutlets on the skillet cooked in olive oil with like some lemon and garlic. Simple, but like find ways to make simple really good. And then I would take rice noodles, boil them, and my mom would send me, she used like, make this unreal basil pesto, and she would send me to school with like things of basil sauce that I would keep in my freezer. And so the chicken and pesto was the next dish, and then sauteed stir fry in olive oil, salt and pepper, and broiled turkey burgers. So those were like my 3 at-home cooked meals. And then my go-to meal for when I was out was always like a simply grilled salmon and vegetables or potatoes. So just have like your token meals. So doing that, when I was back at school, I found that people were for sure judgmental. I would go out to the bars and like I stopped drinking for like a year. So imagine being like 20, 21, all your friends are turning 21 and like you're not drinking, because like you do have to, like, yeah, now I go out, I have cocktails, I can live my life, but like you are gonna go through this like transformative year or 2 until you kind of like get the hang of it. So I kind of stopped drinking. I was like really focused on just like getting myself good, and then I would slowly add in. So like, yeah, like sauteed chicken and like rice noodles is boring, but now it's like paleo breaded chicken with chickpea noodles. Like I've stepped the game up, but I always say just like start simple and like make simple really good and then like grow from there. So going back to school, I was a finance major, and I was very much on that career path of like, I was already being recruited by JP Morgan. I was the head TA of financial and managerial accounting. I was like a huge math nerd, and I taught my own classes. Like I had friends who were in my sections and taking my classes. It was really cool. It's like, seems like a past life where I was like a teacher. But so I was doing the whole finance route, but while I was learning cooking and falling in love with gluten-free, I kind of, because I never experienced food before, food for me was always just like, oh, I'm hungry, I have to eat, not like, ooh, I'm a foodie. Once I started cooking, I became a foodie because I'm trying to make these simple things taste really good and also prove to my friends like how good my new diet is. And so then I become a foodie, but at that point I was so down the path of the finance thing. I've known since I was like birthed that I was not meant to go into finance. I was very gifted with math, so I was good at it, but it doesn't mean I liked it. So that's another thing too, is like, you know what you're meant to do. And no one, like my family was never like, Nicole, go into finance. Like it was just, I grew up in that world, so it was like an obvious thing, like, oh, I should just do that, especially if I'm good at it. But in my soul, I knew like, yo, I'm actually like a foodie. I should be like creating something. And I was always, even in high school, I was a creative writing nerd. I would take these classes for creative writing. I won like an award for a little book that I wrote when I was a senior in high school. Like, I love writing. So you know what is right for you in terms of your career. Don't let anyone else tell you or imply to you, or never feel like you're supposed to go do something. Like, if you're from a family of doctors, like, oh, I gotta be a doctor now. No, like, if you wanna go be a hippie, like, go be a hippie. Just be the best hippie ever. So at that point, I'm like super going down the finance path. I was into it, and all the while I just like knew I loved the food world, but I was like, you know what, like, food is a part of everyday life. I'll just like apply that to whatever I do in the future. So fast forward, I ended up getting a job in equity sales, which is a lot of clients entertaining, and food became a part of my life. But I think I'm gonna save that for part 3, because in this part 2 of my story, I really just wanna hone in on the fact of like, again, because your life has to be affected does not mean your lifestyle has to be. Okay, so I lost a shit ton of weight when I went gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, sugar-free, everything free. I liked what I saw in the mirror. I was like, damn, like, I didn't even know like I could or should lose weight. Like, this is cool. And it almost, as I started being able to have certain things back, like nuts and fruit, I almost didn't want them back because I liked how I looked. And that's the danger in this health and wellness industry. Yes, if you start living a healthier lifestyle, you're gonna reap the benefits. Like, maybe your skin clears up. So it's very easy to get hooked on that. People would say to, even my parents were like, you need to eat more of this, like, you're too skinny. And I was like, no, like, I'm looking good, like, I'm eating so much, it's just the right things, that's why I'm staying so small. But like, I definitely, like, instead of a snack having like rice cakes, I was having like steamed broccoli as a snack. Like, and again, like, if that's your preference, that's your preference. But I do want you guys to know that living at this health and wellness industry can become pretty obsessive sometimes. And I for sure fell to that. And that's when I woke up and was like, wait, I love going out. I love a good margarita. I love a good late night plate of fries. I still can have those things and live a healthier lifestyle. So now my mission is really to show you guys that, you know, being healthy, going out, they're not incongruent. There are still ways of applying the health and wellness world to this life that is so amazing, and we should all be living it to the fullest. I feel like I went on a little bit of a ramble. Usually I'm like so outlined and there's like a story, but just to like recap, it's literally, I wanted to share with you guys like my experience with, you know, being that first moment that I had to go gluten-free and all those things, finding my new normal, not falling to the pressures of the health and wellness world, and not really losing myself in it, like staying true to the things that I value, and then also just really showing you how you can make it work. And with that, I'm gonna hang up because I have to go to Paris, so I gotta go pack. Again, like the city of croissants, I'm gonna go and find all the gluten-free breads and croissants. Like, I can apply my health preferences and lifestyle to that city, even though it seems like an impossibility. Thanks guys for listening, as always. And part 3 of my story, this was like a transitional story episode, so maybe I'll do part 3 like today too. Part 3 is Wall Street life and starting NOBREAD, because I feel like that's something people are just like, wait, you worked on Wall Street? Like, what? So with that, please subscribe to my channel. I love you all, appreciate you taking the time to watch, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.